Okay, this is Steve Zeltzer with KPFA Workweek Radio, and I'm with Jerry Downing. He's a longtime trade unionist, was a bus driver, active in the trade union movement, and an internationalist. Welcome to Workweek Radio. Well, Jerry, why don't you talk about the political situation in Britain? There was a protest today of thousands of people to defend the National Health Service. There's increasing attack on the working class, and there's the development of Jeremy Corbyn and the likelihood that he'll become the next prime minister. Where is Britain going politically, and what's happening in the working class here?
Well, there's no doubt that there's a significant movement to the left in the British working class. Uh, the movement to the left was challenged, of course, initially when Corbyn got elected. There was 2 minutes to go when he got the last nomination to stand for the leadership in 2015, and everybody thought, well, that's just a flash in the pan. So the right wing in the Labour Party, the right wing MPs in the Labour Party, challenged him again a year later. And a year later, despite all their best efforts, he won again. He won the leadership again, but still they weren't finished. And then Theresa May thought that, well, this is the time to call a snap election. Everybody says that Jeremy Corbyn is very unpopular, that he's just a left current within the Labour Party. Nobody believes him. And then when it came to the election, she called the election because she had only a small majority. She ended up with no majority at all. And Corbyn got the biggest vote since Tony Blair in 1979. So the big shift had definitely happened within the working class. It had gone from the vanguard of the working class to the class itself, as was shown in the election. But I would also remark that Theresa May got 13,000 votes at that, and that was also the biggest vote that the Tory party had got, really since back in the late 50s. So what's happening is a polarization here of class forces. The UKIP, the far right of Nigel Farage, that was wiped out in the election practically. They had previously won the European elections, they had got the most European seats just a few years before that. But in the election itself, they were now wiped out, as were the Social Democrats. They are the Lib Dems, the Liberal Democrats, I mean. They were also almost wiped out, down to 8 seats from 56. So the middle ground, certainly in England and Wales, it fell away entirely. So you now have a situation, electorally anyway, where the class forces are strongly polarised. It was a slightly different situation in Scotland. Scotland was different because in Scotland, the Scottish National Party was pitching very much to the left in their propaganda, and the Scottish Labour Party was old Blairite Labour Party was pitching very much to the right, and therefore the Scottish working class went very much with New Labour. That may well change now in the next election because the Blairite leadership in the Scottish Labour Party has been ousted, and they have a Corbynite in charge. So that may well change at the next election. Overall, though, there is a big missing factor in the class struggle, and that's the working class itself. Strike levels are at historically a low ebb now in Britain, and have been for well over a decade. Allied with that is the situation in all the local councils. The local councils, there's something like 500 local councils throughout Britain, and many of them are Labour controlled. and those Labour-controlled councils are imposing austerity, a huge swathes of austerity. By 2020, something like 60 to 70% of their funding will be cut. And this will have shocking effects on the social services, on housing, on mental health, and all the provisions. And what we saw today was a huge demonstration. Something like 20 to 30,000 demonstrated today in defence of the National Health Service, because that also is being cut. That has been savaged by by austerity. It's a global phenomenon, but nonetheless also in Britain that the wealth is moving inexorably from the poor to the rich, particularly since 2008. The balance of wealth has moved in a dramatic way through the imposition of austerity on the workers. As people quote figures like the top 1% has something like 60 to 80% of the wealth of Britain, and that's the global situation as well. So inequality is getting worse. The working class is very frustrated, and you have a situation where it may well be that you oust the right-wing Blairite MPs from the Labour Party, but the situation in the local councils is absolutely shocking, and all the Labour councils say, well, what can we do? This is the law. In fact, Jeremy Corbyn and John MacDonald told them that they had to obey the law and therefore impose the austerity. There is, however, one sort of bright spark, I would say, within all this, and that is the London Borough of Haringey. In Haringey, what's happened was that there was a proposal to privatise almost the entire borough, everything in an alliance with an Australian multinational, and this Australian multinational was going to take control of the housing. It was going to take control of all the council's assets, in collaboration with the council, and privatise everything. And there was a huge reaction against this from the grassroots. And the huge reaction resulted in these councillors being deselected and replaced by opponents. I would mention that the two local MPs, the local Labour Party, and even the new left-wing, as it is now, left-wing national executive of the Labour Party instructed this Labour Council that they were not to do this, and eventually now they have capitulated and said that they will not impose this, because when the elections come in May of this year, they know that they have all been replaced anyway by left-wing Labour councils, and therefore the scheme will be killed dead. However, that is not the end of the story, because a huge number of the leadership of the Labour-led councils throughout the country have signed letters in opposition to this surge in Haringey, obviously fearing for their own jobs and fearing for their own position. So, although it's only started in one place, we're quite hopeful that it will develop from that into the rest of the Labour councils, because that is the cutting edge of the imposition of the of austerity. If that doesn't happen, then things would look bad. But we are really confident that this is getting a response throughout Britain, throughout the local councils. They're saying, well, we can't put up with another what it is 3-4 years of this austerity, there will be nothing left at this stage. That's the situation.
Now, the May government seems to be extremely weak. There's internal divisions, internal attacks. While she was in China, she was coming under attack from her own party people. And yet the unions here are not really calling for any direct action against the May government. Maybe you can talk about that, and also the idea that even a Corbyn victory is going to solve the problems of capitalism in Britain.
Yes, it is obvious that the May government is in severe crisis, but the severe crisis of the May government is a crisis of capitalism itself, because on the one hand, if you support Brexit and everybody leaves the European Union, this is going to support the notion that you can build capitalism in a single country. In fact, the strongest advocates of leaving the EU were in fact the Morning Star Communist Party of Britain, who said that this is how you proceed. On the other hand,
the RMT.
The RMT has a strong faction that adheres to the Communist Party of Britain, to the Morning Star. On the other hand, of course, everybody will point that big capital, of course, doesn't want to leave Europe. Big capital wants to remain in Europe, so it can trade and everything else. The argument I would put there is that big capital needs to be overthrown by the working class in order to go forward. We cannot go forward by going backward into national solutions for international problems. I do not see a Brexit as being in any way progressive for the working class. It will strengthen the forces of reaction. It will strengthen the forces of racism and anti-immigrant feelings. In fact, I would say that undoubtedly the big surge that Corbyn got in the election was because of the manifesto he put, which was promising nationalisation, it was promising an end to austerity, it was promising all that. And the Theresa May, she promised the continuation of austerity because she was quite confident she would win the election, because when the election campaign began, she was 24 points ahead in the polls. 24, and she thought that was absolutely could not be overturned in the course of election. Well, it almost was overturned in the election, because I would say entirely because of the manifesto. And I'd also say that the sections, a big section of the working class that blamed immigrants and that voted for Brexit in the referendum, they split and voted for Corbyn this time, because he was actually proposing a manifesto that did suggest that you should fight the capitalists and not other workers. So it was that. Of course, that's still not a solution to the crisis, because obviously the capitalist crisis is endemic to the system itself. It won't be able to be overcome simply by Keynesian economics. But at the same time, the huge surge in membership of the Labour Party and the very big left-wing vote that it got opens up the possibilities of the renewal of the class struggle at a higher level, and we're confident that from Haringey and from other struggles that will surely develop in the coming period, it won't be just the political struggle, but it will be the industrial struggle. Always in Britain you tend to have either one or the other. If you can marry the two of them together, then there's revolutionary possibilities.
Now, Jeremy Corbyn has said he wants to make the country better, that he has policies somewhat like Bernie Sanders, nationalization, free health care, free education, free child care. The economic situation for capitalism is that the capitalism is in crisis. You think that those measures can deal with this capitalist crisis?
No, the measures won't be able to deal with the capitalist crisis. But if you propose strong enough measures like like a wealth tax, preventing the hiding of the taxation of the very wealthy abroad in the tax havens, if you can crack down on that, what you will begin to do is you will begin to raise the expectations of the working class, and you will begin to put more pressure on Corbyn, and then the possibility that the working class will begin to blame capitalism itself. And
don't the working class blame capitalism now?
Well, some of them obviously blamed other workers when they voted.
You mean the immigrant bashing?
The immigrant bashing, and subsequent to the referendum, there was a huge spike in racist attacks, and some racist murders occurred as a consequence. So it was clear that the UKIP message got through, although in that, but I think things did change in the course of the election campaign, and that things will change provided the working class begins to move itself and begins to feel a little bit of confidence in its own strength. I mean, as I have pointed out, the level of strike struggle is at a historic low level in Britain and internationally, actually.
Well, the union officials say it's illegal to strike or very difficult to strike. Is that the situation, or could the workers in Britain take mass strike action, for example, to force the May government out? Or they want to wait for Jeremy Corbyn to come into office through the election process?
Well, no, it does seem that there's a sort of a mood to wait for Jeremy Corbyn to come in. But on the other hand, they are being pressurised economically through the austerity, and this may well force their hand to begin to take industrial action, and we would begin to see that once industrial action begins to be taken, then the political and the industrial will begin to merge in Britain and internationally as well. Britain is not unique in the world in its low level of class struggle. It is unique in the sense of the Corbyn phenomenon. That is a unique phenomenon. But if it does succeed even partially, then it will be replicated in other countries, surely.
And what do people think in Britain about Trump and his coming to power and what he represents?
Well, political groups were generally speaking very good on that. The left-wing political groups were very good on that. They were very good on identifying immediately when Trump said that what he wanted was Brexit plus. They saw what that meant, and he was much cruder even than the UKIP and the right wing here in his attacks on immigrants, and his promise to build a wall, on his attacks on women. It was a much cruder attack than we saw here, but nonetheless, it was essentially the same attack, and the same attack as you see in other countries. So we are sort of waiting in expectations that there will be an explosion in the working class. It may come in the United States, it may come here, but if it comes in one country, it will be replicated. That is how the international class struggle develops.
Well, many people have joined the Labour Party. Does this change the character of the Labour Party, this mass growth of the Labour Party? It's the largest socialist party in Europe right now.
It doesn't change the character of the Labour Party. Um, People said that there was various left-wing political groups that said that when Blair took over and when he abolished the Clause 4, which was the Clause 4 was the iconic left-wing symbol. Workers by hand or by brain should get the fruits of their labour. When he abolished that, they said it was no longer what was used to be called a bourgeois workers' party. They said it was now a democratic party like the Democrats in America. I never took that position. I always thought that it was quite a right-wing bourgeois workers' party. It's a bourgeois workers' party because it's linked to the trade unions, and it is the trade union bureaucrats and the labour leadership are two sides of the same coin. So now that it's swung back to the left, it is now a left-wing bourgeois workers' party rather than a right-wing bourgeois. But it's still that. It's still a workers' party at the base and a capitalist government at the top. Whenever our leadership, whenever it's elected, that's its contradiction, and I think that hasn't fundamentally changed yet.
And what are the hopes for a development in the working class here of political independence and also against militarization and war?
Well, that struggle is ongoing in the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn has not got his own way there. He was very much opposed to Trident and all that, and he's conceded a lot of that. But the movement against war is not great. There is the anti-war movement. They hold their occasional demonstrations. There was the huge demonstrations, of course, against the Iraq War in 2003. But it is, of course, central to the development of a genuine labour movement that it should absolutely oppose both the foreign policy and the foreign wars of British imperialism.
Do the national unions here oppose war in their campaigns?
No, the national unions don't. None of the national unions do that. I suppose the left-wing unions would be critical, would be more critical, like the RMT and the Fire Brigades Union and a few other small unions would be more critical. I'd mentioned that those unions had left had broken with the Labour Party. They were no longer affiliated. The Fire Brigades Union has come back, and there's a strong possibility now that the RMT, the Rail and Maritime Union, that will now return to the Labour Party as well, which would strengthen the left-wing forces within the Labour Party.
And Jeremy Corbyn has said he's going to renationalise the railroads and transportation. And you think that's one of the reasons they're going to be rejoining the Labour Party?
That is one of the reasons that he's going to rejoin the Labour Party. However, the pace of the renationalisations is a big question, because he's said that he will renationalise as the franchises come up for tender. Well, some of these franchises come up every 6 years, and some of them have just been granted. So it would take a very long time indeed to renationalise if he waits for that to happen. We would say that you must renationalise. If you want to renationalise the railways, you must renationalise them in one hit, or else it really won't work.
And the developments of racism in Britain, you say that as a result of Brexit, there's been a rise of racist attacks. What is happening now in the working class, and how are workers defending against racism and racialism?
Well, there has been a rise in racist attack. I have to say that some of the groups that were for Brexit were quite strong in that. The Socialist Workers' Party, for instance, were very good in organising against the rise of racism. The Socialist Party here was less so, but generally speaking, the left was quite good on that. But it is an unfortunate situation that there has been this rise in racism. There has been a strengthening of the small fascist groups.
Are they getting support from the billionaires?
I wouldn't say as yet they're not. They've got no big money behind them yet. They are quite small and marginalised, but they are growing in this situation. It is not like the United States where the Klan and other far right are clearly getting big money support and are clearly developing. That's not the situation here. But there is dangers, of course, in the situation. If the working class doesn't move, then somebody else will move in their place. That's the big danger.
So are you optimistic about the future of the class struggle here in Britain?
I'm optimistic about the future of the class struggle. The leftward Corbyn surge gave everybody hope. If the leftward Corbyn surge is now reinforced with a rise in industrial action and the working class getting confidence in themselves rather than confidence in people to do something for them or provide them with solutions, then we will have a big development in Britain.